In this week's episode for the Twinleaf Journal, we're going to discuss why Ash didn't use his reserve Pokemon and veteran Pokemon for the Masters 8 tournament. Something he should have done, and something he should have done for the entirety of the series. Not to say that he couldn't or shouldn't have caught new Pokemon in Pokemon Journeys, but it's the fact that his old Pokemon are there just for moral support. Just for training his new Pokemon, mentoring them, and then not doing anything. You know, Infernape had this one episode early on where he wanted to battle Moltres, and we see, first time in years, Ash command one of his older Pokemon. He commands Infernape to battle Moltres, and they battle hard. They put their hearts in that battle, and while Gary kind of interrupts that battle, you know, it gave us so much hope that maybe Infernape would rejoin his team at the time. That maybe Infernape would be used later in the Masters 8 tournament. But, alas, none of that comes to pass. And, oh man, I like my tea. What I want to highlight, and I have these tweets saved in the community, the first one I have highlighted is one showing off Pikachu using Counter Shield against Cynthia. And that was great. That was a great callback. I love that they brought back the Counter Shield. What would have been better? Bringing back Buizel and Infernape, who also know how to use Counter Shield, or bringing back any of his veteran Pokemon and having them learn how to use having them learn how to use Counter Shield. That's what would have been better. That's what would have been better. Even Leon uses the Counter Shield, but why not have other Pokemon come back and use it? And oh my goodness, speaking of Ash versus Cynthia, where was Infernape? Where was my boy Infernape? Nowhere to be seen. Nowhere to be seen. Just at home at Oaks Lab watching it on TV. Why? Why? You know, it's a very solid question. It's a very justified question. And I'm going to bring up another tweet. Another tweet that says, this comes from my friend Pokeferlax. This says, my issue is about the writing decision as a whole though. I didn't want Ash to use just his JN Pokemon all series, then switch to reserves in the Masters 8. I wanted him to use a mix for the entire series. Use new Pokemon and reserves throughout the whole PWC. That was the dream. That's a dream many of us shared for the Masters 8. We thought, oh, he's back in Kanto. He has access to Oaks Lab, he's going up against these champions, these trainers from around the world, and he's going to need his strongest Pokemon. Where's Sceptile? Where's Charizard? Where's potentially Bulbasaur and Squirtle? Where is Crocodile, Lycanroc, Greninja? Where are Pokemon like Swellow and Buizel and Gliscor? These Pokemon should have been here for the entire series. And, you know, let's highlight something else as well. There's also, truly wild, this comes from Blast _Chance on Twitter, truly wild how I still see people insist the JN team were the only ones good enough for the Masters 8 when the whole point of his rivalry with Paul was to prove all his Pokemon have equal potential. That was the message of Diamond and Pearl, that you could win with your favorite Pokemon, akin to Karen of the Johto Elite Four in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and Gold Silver Crystal, saying that weak Pokemon, strong Pokemon, that's the perception of selfish trainers. True Pokemon trainers win with their favorite Pokemon and the ones they love. That was the message of Diamond and Pearl. And I love it. That was the whole basis surrounding Ash and Paul's rivalry. Yet, only Dragonite, Gengar, Dracovish, Sirfetch'd, Lucario, and Pikachu were considered strong enough to participate in the Masters 8 tournament. Why? His other Pokemon could do it. Greninja, Naganadel, Melmetal, Lycanroc, Incineroar probably could do it. Charizard, Sceptile, Crocodile. Pokemon like that would have been great to use in the Masters 8 tournament. And the entirety of the PWC as well. But we don't get that. We don't. And it's a shame, really. It's a shame that his veteran Pokemon are only there on the sideline, morally supporting, cheering him on. And that's great. I'm glad that they're supporting him. But they should have done more. They should have been used more. Like, Ash, if Journeys was rewritten in a much better way. And my friend Zaktoshi has made an entire Sword and Shield rewrite where this does happen, but he reframes the Masters 8, well, the Galar League anyway. He reframes it differently so it's more traditional, but he makes it work. He gives Ash a new team and makes him use his veterans in the Galar League, and that works perfectly. My friend Zano made a Sword and Shield rewrite, and I believe in his series, Ash did not catch a full new team. I believe he still had Gengar, Lucario, and Dragonite, but Ash uses all of his reserves throughout that entire series, and that is what we should have gotten. That is what should have happened. Let's highlight some more tweets that I had found, which this comes from a Kilvers, our friend Annet, and she says, also here, when they agreed to battle, Paul said, however, you will only use Pokemon for the Masters 8, Pokemon you intend to use in the Masters 8 tournament, which once again confirms that for the Masters 8, Ash uses only the JN team, without switching to old Pokemon. Yes, we know that Ash has been using only his new teams to win at League since the Unova League, but here is the perfect moment for, again, history to be made. 25 plus years of anipoke history, but you don't use any of your old Pokemon. In the episode Rivals Friends Lend Me Your Strength, where Paul was training Ash for the Masters 8, all his old Pokemon were training the new team. We have, what is it, I believe Oshawott and Sceptile and Bulbasaur, they were going toe-to-toe with, I believe, Sirfetch'd. Then we have Hawlucha, Heracross, and Weasel sparring with Lucario. All of Ash's flying types are helping out Dragonite. Dracovish is chilling with, I believe, Kingler or Glalie, something. And his Pokemon are just chilling. They're vibing with his old Pokemon. The new team mixing with the old teams. And that episode is great. It's one of the best in Pokemon Journeys. But that episode highlights the poor writing of the rest of the series. Which, yes, the episode when it is self-contained is great because it reminds me of that episode in Hoenn where it's the right place and the right time or the right mime. But that's when his Hoenn team meets all of Ash's old Pokemon. And that's what we should have gotten earlier in the series. Ash went back to Oak's lab plenty of times. Ash should have been using his veteran Pokemon, and he doesn't. Let's see, what else can we highlight? Again, I'm going to put on screen Pokeferlax's ranking of the leagues, and Masters 8 is ranked at the third worst, only above Unova and Kanto, and I mean, is it really hard to beat those? Is it hard to beat those leagues? Not really. So that's not saying much for the Masters 8. There was so much opportunity for Ash to use his veterans throughout the PWC. He should have been using Bulbasaur, Squirtle from the very beginning, Pokemon like Swellow, Corphish, Pokemon like Gibble, letting them shine, giving chances for some of them to evolve, learn new moves. But Journeys just fumbles everything. It fumbles the bag, it drops the ball. And it makes the series suffer. It makes it suffer. It makes Ash vs. Leon suffer because we could have seen maybe Dragonite and Lucario stay, but we could have seen Charizard versus Charizard. We could have seen Lycanroc and Sceptile step up to the world stage. Infernape should have battled Cynthia's Garchomp, not Lucario. And it's really a shame that his old Pokemon are nothing more than cheerleaders in Pokemon Journeys. That Ash only wanted to use his new Pokemon for these monumentally significant battles. And that really drags the series down. So, for everything that Pokemon Journeys tried to do, tried to execute, it was very poor. It was very poor, and the lack of Ash using his veteran Pokemon throughout the entirety of the series, when they gave us a glimpse of hope in the beginning, it drags down the series, and it drags down the Masters 8 tournament.